In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Ritz Furniture specializes in quality furniture for affordable prices. Our extensive inventory highlights top brands and provides everything you could ever want. You can count on us for kitchen, dining, bedroom, and living room furniture, no matter what the style is you have in mind. Stop in with your family and look at our amazing selection to find the perfect fit for your home. Contact us today to see how we can make a difference in your home.
Hello and welcome into week 2 of Inside the Smoky Mountain Conference. Jake West, joined by Brandon Stevens. I mean, we've had a long off season, and I don't think that's how anybody wanted week 1 to start. I think we went 1-5 in the conference. Andrews being the lone winner. So let's start with Brandon. One question: who lost to the weekend? Obviously, 5 teams lost, but who do you think was the biggest loser this weekend, all things considered? We'll talk about who won the weekend in a minute, but who lost the weekend? Could be a player, coach, a team, a fan base. Who lost the weekend?
I think that probably with some expectations that they had, and then looking at the team that they were playing, was not supposed to be as good as what they were supposed to be. But I think that theme kind of settles throughout the conference. If you look at Robbinsville, you look at Murphy, you look at Swain, you look at Hayesville. I mean, all these teams are supposed to be back building. They've lost a lot to graduation, but and then the teams that they were playing last week, we were thinking like, oh goodness, these guys. Not necessarily a pushover or an automatic W on your schedule, but this one you should have had it in the bag. But I think Murphy was the obvious biggest loser in this week, because they really had a lot of pieces to the pie. They had a lot of good ingredients to make a successful stew of football, and it just didn't come out. Weren't playing united. It didn't seem like it was the same front that you would want to expect from Murphy. But then also, we weren't expecting probably this good of a football team coming from the Franklin Panthers. They had one heck of, we'll get into this, but they had one heck of a good football team.
Sure. That's my biggest loser too. I mean, Murphy just came out, laid an egg offensively, defensively, special teams, offensive line, defensive line. Nothing was clicking. There was the lone bright spot for Murphy on Friday night was probably number 2, Will Shore. He had a very good football game for the Dogs. But let's go ahead and talk about that game, Brandon, and what Murphy's going to have to do to change gears. They've got Heard County coming to town this week. But let's just break that down. Franklin came in, scored right off the bat. Murphy scored right off the bat 2 plays later, and then it was all Franklin from there out. Just what were your biggest takeaways from that game?
Well, in the beginning, I think like everybody else, I think this was going to be a really good football game. We didn't expect to see what we saw out of the Franklin Panthers. Braden Harvey is a man. He really can run the football, and then you also had Adix Sutton, who was, really good right behind him. And the quarterback, Anderson Terrell, those 3 were like the 3 horsemen of the apocalypse. When Murphy was looking into the sunset, here come these guys. But then the whole package was there with Franklin. I mean, they had big linemen, skilled, agile, a lot of work in the offseason went into play here. Once Josh Brooks at Franklin, I think, made the decision to say, "Hey, I'm coming back. I'm going to come back," and he resigned, and then he came back. But when he did, he really put a lot of diligent work, and he could afford to put more diligent work into his team because last year he was having to coach both JV and varsity. Not so this year; he's got a full staff. So again, that one, but right out of the box, the Panthers were doing well. A couple of interceptions. There were a lot of penalties, a lot of crazy mistakes that Murphy made, ranging from holding, blocking the back, a few delays of games. There were turnovers on downs, at least 2 of those, and at least 2 interceptions. So with all of that, an old coach once told me, he said, when you have that in your stat background, that don't win ball games.
Yeah.
And this did not work. In addition to that, you could kind of see from where I sat, I was sitting up in a perch, streaming the game. You were down there on the sideline a little bit with them, but I saw a lot of long faces. I saw a lot of despair, and I hate to say this for Murphy, but it was a given up feeling that you got from, and so that end, I think it was all there for a bad loss.
I agree. On the flip side of things, obviously we think, Murphy's the team that lost the weekend. Who won the weekend? Obviously only one team won, and that was Andrews. But I'm going to say Everett Tatham won the weekend. First came back from his injury last year. Starting quarterback for the Wildcats. He only completed 1 pass, but he got it done on the ground with his legs. 77 rush yards, and he had 1 touchdown, 5.5 yards per carry. Good to see anyone recover from injury, and Tatham had a good night. Want to see him, be out there healthy for his senior season after missing most of his junior year last year.
Yeah, I like what was he 4 of 6? Had some pretty good work as far as his passing goes. Rushing in there, like Eli Aguilar, we've been expecting to see some really good things out of him. Just not there because there were some people with more seniority, or there were people just he was the next man up for the past couple of seasons. Now he's the man, and he's showing that he probably can be. 23 carries out of the 53 almost half the carries went to him, and he was carrying probably about half the yardage too, about 150 yards, I believe that he had, and then a few touchdowns for Eli. So yeah, he was strutting his stuff. And you had some other guys. Tatham ran in for 1, but a good showing for the offense, and I believe that's going to translate into some pretty good stuff as they go forward. Now I believe they have the week off this week, but early on they're going to come back, and I think it's going to be an interesting game early in the season. Now, tell me if I'm wrong here, but schedule has them down for an early conference game 2 weeks from this coming Friday with Hayesville.
Correct. Yep. They've got Hayesville in 2 weeks. I think you're right. They are off. I thought that could have been a trap game for Andrews, but they came out and played well and took control of Rosman. You want to mention, keep Rosman and that community in your prayers with everything that happened over there this weekend. That's terrible. I mean, never want to hear about that. But Coach Allen and the rest of that staff are definitely in our thoughts and our prayers, along with the rest of those athletes on that team. But what about Andrews? Just coming out of the gate and showing that they're ready for the 2024 season, and they're about the only team in the conference that showed they were ready for the 2024 season, because another team we thought was going to probably walk away with a multiple touchdown win was going to be Robbinsville. They traveled to East Surrey, taking on the Cardinals, and they fall 21-19. What was your original thoughts when you saw that score roll across your screen, Brent?
Surprise. There were a couple teams that with surprise. I think Swain County with Charlotte Country Day,
Yeah.
Murphy with Franklin. We've talked about them in that football game, but the East Surrey game, that one relatively surprised me. I think in the comments that we made last week, one of the biggest challenges I thought going into that game, because I thought they had all of the pieces to put to it, and again, it wasn't a massacre, but the biggest
Oh, yeah.
challenge they probably had was taking the trip. How well did you last the trip, and did you make your wise use of your time, do a walkthrough, get the right breaks and snacks and all that stuff and then keep your mind right for a long trip like that. On the other hand, again, it was 21-19, and I didn't quite see that it was just a blowaway. Although I thought that Robbinsville probably had all the tools to push East Surrey out of the way.
Yeah, I think they made some mistakes down the stretch. I know they had an interception. I think they had another turnover there. I know they also had, I think their quarterback ended up getting banged up, missed a play at the very end that was pretty critical. But yeah, I mean, that's a game that I thought Robbinsville was going to go down there and come away with a victory. But things don't get any easier for Robbinsville because they're playing that revamped Franklin team that we saw take Murphy to the slaughterhouse. What do you think about that game coming up on Friday? We'll talk about some of the others from last week and others coming up, but just how do you think Robbinsville and Franklin match up? Because we saw a very good, I mean, you don't want to take anything away from Franklin. Murphy played terrible and looked lifeless, but we still saw a much improved Franklin team show up on Friday night.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that the big key here, and that's a quote key, is if you can watch Braden Hervey, if you can watch where number 30, Adix Sutton, moves. That was one of the things that Murphy didn't do that well, was reading the keys and getting to the ball. Now, if you're Robbinsville, I would say that you need to turn on some speed. That's one of that's the second little piece to this whole thing, is make sure that, you've got some big guys in the trenches, whether it's, Inslee or Teestesky or, a couple others that really can play well. You're going to have to be a master of reading the keys. You're going to have to be on your toes, so to speak, with, don't get up out of your stance, but you're going to have to be able to, one, contain Harvey, which speed kills, and he has it. And that's going to be the biggest challenge within that realm. And I believe that one is also played at Franklin. So another not a long road trip, but it's it's a road trip nonetheless. You've got to go to the Panther Pit. Panther Pit, if you've never played there, if you've never been in that whole arena, I don't care if you were playing back like when I was back in the 80s up until now. Panther Pit is a terrible place to play if you're the opponent. But no, I think they're in. If you can get your really, I think the line, they're going to have to do the job. But I think people like Ledbetter, people like Roman Jones, people like Adams, some of these others, they're really going to have to. Your secondaries are going to really have to watch and be after this team. Franklin didn't pass a whole lot, but what they did, they could connect. But this is a run team, and they know how to milk the clock.
One thing about Franklin that I would say is they are a very efficient football team. Everything they did was with a purpose. They didn't waste any plays, didn't waste any drives. I know they did have a couple fumbles there at the end, but that was from a freshman running back that, the game was in control. There was no reason for him not to be getting some experience. But, my thoughts about this game now and my thoughts about how this game was going to go 14 days ago are completely different. I think it's going to be a much closer ball game than I would have projected at the beginning of the year. I thought Franklin would be 0-1 and Robbinsville would be 1-0, but instead they're flip-flopped heading into this one. It's going to tell a lot one way or another, either how much of a turnaround Coach Brooks has had in Franklin, or how bad Murphy started out their season. I mean, if Robbinsville goes to Franklin and boat races the Panthers, it's going to bring up even more questions for Murphy because the road doesn't get any easier for Murphy either. They've got a good Heard County 2-0 Heard County Braves team from Georgia coming to David Gentry Field on Friday night. But like you said, it's gonna be a good one. And you talked about Robbinsville. You know, last week's game went a little different than you thought. You brought up Swain. Let's talk about Swain. Last week, travel to Charlotte, another long road trip. We talked about the road trip to Rosman that Andrews had, the road trip to East Surrey that Robbinsville had. How about the road trip to Charlotte that Swain County had? They are unable to come away with a victory, and just some head scratchers that happened in week one. This is one of them. Swain unable to beat Charlotte Country Day. I mean, it sounds like if my takeaway from this football game was that Swain County needs some work in their secondary. I think that Charlotte Country Day was able to throw the football fairly well, fairly efficiently against the Swain County Maroon Devil secondary.
Well, let me tell you this. First of all, this is definitely not the same Charlotte Country Day school that they had last year. My notes, everything that because I was kind of flipping back in my book and looking back to Charlotte Country Day 1 year ago on August 14th. Basically, what we knew about them: they were tall, they were athletic, they played spread, they had 38 players, they had 11 seniors. That script didn't change that much, except for the fact that some schools have been really after some really good athletes on this football team. Quarterback Khalil Wright has a full ride, or at least he's committed to Kennesaw State. Their wide receiver, Braylon Clark, has committed to Florida State. One of their linebackers, I believe it's Bobby Wakefield, is going to Coastal Carolina. And then their left tackle, which I got to go out here and cheat just a little bit. I want to say it's Ryan Nolan, not Nolan Ryan. I think I'm pretty sure on that one. If somebody can correct me, but there's also another butt kicker, number 70. One of those two is going to Ole Miss. So, Jake, Kennesaw State, Florida State, Coastal Carolina, Ole Miss, and there are others in the pile here that are probably going to go to some D1 schools. So, in that, I'm saying you're playing pretty much a college football team that you had, and you came out and did okay, 21-11. After we didn't know that going in. We didn't know about all the nets and all the abilities going in. Pretty much, we kind of looked at that and said, okay, what's kind of the same as it was last year. So Swain County should go in and have its way, just not necessarily just go through the motions, but this is a team that was a clean game. You didn't see a lot of silly penalties. There was an interception that was thrown, but overall, this was a pretty good football game. And give me 1 second. I think Coach Holt had sent me a couple of stats on the guys. So like Grady Lewis, Insay Ufert, 8 tackles, 6 tackles for Ufert, 1 sack. Drew Skaggs, 6 tackles, 2 sacks. Drew Cody had 11 carries for 52 yards. Zeke Glaspie was the guy who was the workhorse. 15 carries for 117 yards. So not a bad night. But when you take a look at it and say, oh, my God, Swain County lost to the Buccaneers, 21-11. This was awful. No, I think that, it's awful that you lose. You don't want to lose. Who gets up on a Friday morning and says, let's go out and lose a football game, guys? In this case, I understand.
Yeah.
Because it was a Sisyphean task. I mean, you're rolling the stone up the hill and it rolls right back down. So I think that it was almost like a Greek tragedy going in on these guys because they were outweighed on this one.
Yeah, I mean, context means a lot, and when you put that into, you paint your story and you tell the team that Swain County is playing against has obviously been hitting the transfer portal and the recruiting pretty hard this offseason to turn that team around. So
let me make one other little point here. But just mentioning just efficiency, passing, it was 8 of 15 for Khalil Wright, 159 yards and a touchdown. But also there was it was spread out. There are all kinds of different people getting their pieces of the run. 159 yards. All purpose. Pretty much the rushing. 170 yards, 26 carries, and you do quite well. So in that this was an efficient team that they played.
So Swain's going to regroup. They've got a Smoky Mountain team coming off of a victory against Cherokee. Cherokee hung in there like a hair in a biscuit for the first half, and then Smoky Mountain ended up running away with things.
Well, in that game, it was interesting to see that really Cherokee had they had the keys. They unlocked the door first, and they were not letting Smoky Mountain really see the light of day through a good portion of this football game. Now, this is one thing I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Coach Hawkins or anybody at Cherokee, but maybe they ran out of gas. I will say that I was talking about this last week. I was impressed. Jonathan, the one big, real big element that Cherokee needs is a quarterback.
Yeah,
you have some pretty good players, but just is that going to be Jonathan Saylor? 10 of 17, 183 yards. Couple touchdowns, threw a couple interceptions too. His longest pass was 45 yards. But then also you have sophomore Dawson Panther. I like this kid. I think it's if I were working for ESPN or Sports Illustrated or somebody like that, this would be a kid that's like walking the halls, or he's facing the crowd of really good athletes. I would watch out for him. He was 3 of 5, had 10 yards, but getting some experience. I think Coach Hawkins is grooming this guy to come in and do some pretty good stuff. Overall, he's been a good athlete. The others, we were talking about Brandon Santiago, Noah Waddy, Luke Smith, a couple others. Not the best rushing night that they had, but overall they stuck with Smoky Mountain. Jerry Jones, I think he's another one in Western North Carolina to watch. He was 4 of 7, 19 yards. And then rushing Malachi McNeely, but Aiden Johnson, the senior there, he was the one who posted up the numbers, 25 carries, 283 yards for the night. And goodness, a few touchdowns, 4 touchdowns to his credit. So, Swain's going to have to watch these guys, but this one looks more like you're probably going to see this one hit the ground, and so that works into the hands of Swain County if Smoky does keep this one on the ground. Yeah, definitely.
I thought Cherokee played very well. You mentioned maybe they ran out of gas, but they really this Smoky Mountain team, I kind of look at them like the Franklin team. They're not the same football team that they were last year in 2023. They look completely different. Smoky Mountain looks, they've got some athletes. They replaced some of those big names, and they look like a more complete football team than just, the 2 superstars they had last year. They look like a better team. But like you said, they're more of a run first, so that plays into favor of Swain County. Cherokee has got I think they're on the road at Cosby, Tennessee this week. Cosby, not a very good Tennessee football program, so I think Cherokee is going to get back on track. Let's start talking about and predicting some of these games coming up. Let's start with Cherokee at Cosby. I'm going to go Cherokee 35-14. I think they get back on track, even though it's on the road. That the Braves get a big win here in week 2 and get to 1-1 on the season.
I think this one could quickly get away. I don't even know if I'll give I'll give the Eagles a touchdown and an extra point in this one. This is not going to be good. This will be good to exercise the team and probably, like I was saying, see a little bit more of Dawson Panther and a couple others, and really get your wings kind of spread if you're a Brave on this one, not an Eagle. But I think this one's could easily be like a 42-7 football game in favor of the Cherokee Braves. We didn't cross back over, but I thought one of the bigger winners last week. They didn't actually win the football game, but I thought with the way that they played, Cherokee coming out with an established team like Smoky Mountain, I kind of would have thrown my vote to the Cherokee Braves in this one because they did some good stuff. They had a good team win, but I think this one the next couple of weeks, I think Choctaw Central, they're going to be out for blood. You better win this week against Cosby because Choctaw Central from Philadelphia, Mississippi, they're going to be coming into town. Rosman, Mount Zion Christian Academy, and so I don't think they're going to be tested really well until you get down to September 27th. That's when they face Robbinsville.
What about the other Braves? Heard County Braves coming to Murphy. That's a game that's going to be live on fyntv.com. Brandon, you'll be on the call for that one. Another tough test for Murphy out of the gate. If they're not careful, they're going to get embarrassed on their home field 2 weeks in a row because this Heard County team is a very good football team.
Yeah, this is a law me type football team because you look back, Clarkston, they beat them 62-0. South Atlanta. You might enlighten us a little bit more about the prospects of playing South Atlanta. I don't know as much about them, but 48-14, an inner city type school that's probably got some good players. The looking at passing, they're very well accomplished. They don't pass a whole lot, but their bread and butter seems to be on the ground with Douglas and Pearson, a couple of seniors that they have, but otherwise they get their receiving. I mean, but it's like when they finally pass, they make things happen. So this is going to well, I'll say this for Murphy, this is going to be a good test to get you back on your feet because they have all the options. Their RPO. I mean, they can do it well.
What do you see? How do you see this one falling?
This one again. I hate to say it this way, but this one could really come down to the Heard County Braves, and it could be very similar to what it was this past week, 28-14. I'll kind of try to cap it like that. I will say that Murphy makes some improvements on defense. What is that, 28-14? That's Heard County beating Murphy this week.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it could even get. I mean, with the way that they played last week, there's plenty of improvements to be made. It just depends on, what they make those improvements, what area they make those improvements in. The line play's got to get better. And this is a Heard County team that's coming. They've shut out both their opponents. I mean, they haven't played, they haven't slayed the Giants this year, but they've shut out both their opponents, I believe. Heard County has in games 1 and 2, put up 40-plus points. So this is a high-powered offense, and Murphy's going to have to. I mean, like I said, they need to be careful because this is a game that if Murphy finds a way to win this ball game, I'll say this: if they find a way to win this ball game, it will be by 1 score. But if they're not careful, they could lose by 3 or 4 scores because Heard County can score, and they can score quickly. So I do think Heard County's going to win this probably by 14, 17, 21, somewhere around in there. But Murphy's got to find a way to move the ball offensively. And one thing we didn't talk about for Murphy, yes, they played. It was a poor showing, but they're also not at 100% right now. They're not at full health. They're missing some key players on both sides of the ball, and those guys are not going to be back this week. I think this would probably be a much closer ball game if those guys were going to be back this week, but still got some holes to fill for the Dogs because of this off-season injuries. So I think this one goes in favor of the Braves. But switching around, Swain County, are they traveling to Smoky Mountain, or is this one's okay? It's in Bryson City. In Bryson City. That's a game that's got all the makings of a classic because, like I said, this Smoky Mountain team's a lot better than the one Swain County played last year. But I think due to the fact Swain County's line play is so good, Swain gets back on track this week. They go to 1-1 with a 21-7 victory over the Mustangs.
I'm going to go a little bit farther than that. I'd say 21-14, maybe even 21-17. This is going to be a close game. This is going to take you back to the old days of Swain and Silva Webster, or the early days of Swain, Smoky Mountain. I think that where you have some really good teams, and it's going to come down to who wants it more, and who's more prepared. And I think that probably this one, because you're playing in Memorial Stadium, Boys to Eats Field, this is a Swain County win.
Yeah, I agree. Last game on the docket, probably the game of the week in the Smoky Mountain Conference, if you ask me. Robbinsville travels to the Panther Pit. We talked about this one a little bit, but we didn't give our scores or predictions. I think Robbinsville gets right this week, even though Franklin's at home. I think Franklin may be a little bit big-headed after their Week 1 win over Murphy. Robbinsville, they just played in a heartbreaker 21-19 against East Surrey. I think Robbinsville gets back on track, and they come away from Franklin with a victory here in Week 2, headed into Week 3 with a 1-1 record against Copper Basin.
I'm seeing Franklin in this one. One, you're in the Panther Pit. Two, with how things went and how they demonstrated their good work. I don't think it was Franklin playing a no talent Murphy or anything like that this past week. I think that it was just them demonstrating that they have some good players and they've got a good team and they've got a good scheme. I think that within this, it's not going to be a big carry away game like 42-3 or something like that. We're going to see this one fairly close. I probably have to drop back and say this is a Franklin like 24-21. They will allow some scoring to go on in this game, just based on how things work. And I think that Franklin, with the fact that they can go into the air a little bit, they have some really good defensive secondary. Adams probably doesn't pass as much. He has some good targets. They can do the work, but I think the advantage, the little edge there is going to be Franklin. They're going to be 2-0 going into this next week.
Yeah, what is it? The Mountain 7 Conference got a lot better this year. It seems like the offseason, a couple teams have really shown some improvements there. But I think Robbinsville and Franklin, that's the game of the week. Murphy and Heard County, that game is on FYNTV.com. Please, if you can't make it to the Hill, tune in, 7 o'clock pregame show, FYNTV.com for free as always. Brandon, anything else you want to take away here? Our show was a little bit condensed because Brandon and I are traveling to North Carolina State University to watch the Wolfpack take on the Catamounts and cover little story on Micah Nelson and Tyler West from Andrews at NC State, and Yusuf Mugerbil and some of those other guys. So next week we'll be back in full swing. Brandon, anything else?
No, I think it's good. I think we're heading in for another good week of high school football in the Smoky Mountain Conference. Be there and support your teams.
Agreed. Thank you, Brandon.
See ya.